Hi, welcome back to Table for One, where I show you how to cook for one in a more delicious way. This week, I want to show you how you can take one weekly food shop and make 5 completely different one-pot, one-portion meals with minimal food waste, minimal effort, but maximum flavour. I know that one of the struggles for cooking for one is finding the balance between variety, but also not wanting to waste the ingredients that you have, which is why I develop meal plans specifically for people cooking for one. All the recipes in this week's meals use similar ingredients, so there are minimal leftovers at the end of the week, which is exactly what you want when you're cooking for one. This is my food shop plus a couple more store cupboard ingredients, and from this I'm going to make 5 completely delicious meals. If this sounds like something that is useful to you, then make sure you check out my Substack, because every other week I send out a meal plan, which includes a categorized shopping list, dietary swaps for if you're gluten-free, vegetarian, or vegan, plus tips and tricks to use up any leftovers if there are any. But this week, there are very, very few, so stick around. I hope you enjoy the recipes and I hope you're hungry. The first recipe this week is for my Thai red curry baked dumplings, and if you've never baked a dumpling before, then you are seriously missing out. I know that usually you would boil or steam a dumpling or potentially pan fry to get that little crispy bottom, but this method is actually brilliant because A, you can just whack it in the oven and forget about it, but also it kind of steams and crisps up all at the same time, which gives the texture that I really want. There's a hair on my dumplings. You can find frozen gyoza or any other frozen dumpling quite often in a supermarket frozen aisle, but if not, then check out your local Asian supermarket because they will have so many varieties. I've just gone for some chicken gyoza today, but you could use prawn gyoza, pork, you could use a vegetable one if you want to keep this vegetarian. There's a couple of other substitutions as well, but you can really make it your own. And then the same thing goes for vegetables. So I am using broccoli and baby corn because these vegetables are also going to feature later on in the week in another recipe and we want to use them up. So those are the vegetables that I'm using in this recipe, but you could switch it up, just make sure to switch it up for the future recipe as well so you don't waste anything. So you want to start by chopping your garlic and your ginger. This is a really great recipe because everything just gets chucked in the pan, you whack it in the oven and you just leave it and the oven does all the hard work for you, which is exactly what we want when you're cooking for one and you want to eat something different every day, but you don't want to be putting in a ton of time and a ton of effort. This is also where real powerhouse ingredients come in handy because you want ingredients that are really gonna do the work for you, essentially. So flavor-packed things like our Thai red curry paste, which is here. This is one of my favorite brands. The flavor is just unmatched. When you take supermarket brands of curry paste, they're just nowhere near as good as this. You can find these in a supermarket, but again, if not, you can find it in an Asian supermarket. The red one and the green one are both really, really good, but this essentially packs in so many ingredients in one. So it's got garlic, chili, lemongrass, shallot, galangal, shrimp paste, and lime peel. So rather than buying all of those ingredients separately, you can just buy this curry paste. It will keep in the fridge for literally years. So a really, really good one to have on hand. Same, oh my God, the door. And then the same thing also goes for fish sauce and soy sauce, which are essentially umami packed ingredients. So you don't need a lot, but they really bring so much depth and so much flavor. So those are the sorts of ingredients that you want to kind of have on hand in your store cupboard. They also feature quite a lot in my recipes. So when it comes to my weekly meal plans, I try and use similar ingredients in a lot of my dishes because in this economy, nobody wants to be buying 1,000 different things, especially not when you're just cooking for one and you want a quick and easy dinner at the end of the day. This recipe really is about chopping up your ingredients, putting it all in a pan and letting the oven do the work. So that's all the prep you need to do. It couldn't be easier, but it's really, really delicious. This would also make a really great preppable lunch. So you could easily make this the night before and pop it in a container overnight, take it into work the next day, and you have a really filling, sustaining, but nutrient-dense meal, which is exactly what we want when it comes to any meal, really. That's literally all the prep. We're just gonna pop it in the pan, pop it in the oven, and then I will show you the finished result. This whole thing literally took me 5 minutes to prep, and then it goes into the oven for 25 minutes-ish until golden bubbling. The gyoza will be slightly crispy on top, the sauce will have thickened, and it'll be delicious. The baked dumplings are done, so as you can see, the sauce has thickened up. The gyoza are crispy on the top, but lovely and juicy in the middle. And the only thing left to do is top it with fresh coriander. So my second recipe of the week is my jerk chicken with coconut rice and pineapple. I love this recipe. It's one of the standout recipes from my book. When I think about delicious recipes in my book, I really think about this one because I love coconut rice and this is just the most delicious one-pot meal. We are using the rest of the tin of coconut milk from the baked dumplings, so you're already starting to see that ingredients are being used up in completely different ways, so you still get loads of variety but with minimal food waste, which is exactly what we want. As well as coconut milk, we are adding basmati rice, then red kidney beans, which is the only ingredient this week that you will have some leftover of. You'll have about half a tin of kidney beans left over, but these are a super versatile bean that you can add to salads or lunches throughout the week. It really packs a little punch of fibre, of colour, and obviously of flavour. So they'll keep in your fridge and you can just kind of chuck them into other things that you're making. They work well in pastas, literally anything. You do also use them in the chili, which is coming up later, but there'll still be just a couple left over after that. Then we're adding pineapple chunks. You can use fresh or tinned. If you're not going to eat a whole pineapple yourself, then I would suggest using tinned, plus they last a little bit longer, but these smaller tins are really handy because you need half of this for this recipe alone, and then I personally just like to snack on the rest, but again, you could add it to breakfast or dessert throughout the week. And then chicken thighs. I would suggest using skin on chicken thighs. I've got skin off this week, but only because that's what I could find. If I was using skin on, I would render out the fat in a cold pan first, which is what the instructions say in my cookbook. But because there's no skin on this, I don't need to do that. So I can just start to add everything to the pan, whack it in the oven, and then it's good to go. This jerk paste as well can keep in the fridge for ages, and you could add this to meat and vegetables and it adds so much flavour. So even though we're not using the whole thing in this recipe, it will last for ages to use in future recipes. And this goes into the oven and that's it. Recipe number 2 is my jerk chicken with coconut rice and pineapple, all done. I like to serve it with some fresh cucumber slices because that really crispy crunch just cuts through that sweet, slightly sticky coconut rice, and it's just the perfect combination. It's also a little bit cooling to go with the spicy jerk, and yeah, it's just a really well-rounded dish. I absolutely love it, and I hope you do too. Winner, winner, jerk chicken dinner. For our third recipe of the week, we are back to the frozen gyoza, but this time we are doing a gyoza stir fry. This literally takes 10 minutes to prep, 10 minutes to cook. It's a one pan dinner in 20 minutes and it's completely delicious, obviously. Again, we're using up ingredients from before, so we have got our baby corn, our broccoli, and also our tinned pineapple, which adds a really nice kind of sweet and sour vibe to the stir fry. You can leave it out if you want, and as I say, you could use it for breakfasts or sweet treats, but I really love it in a stir fry. The sauce is really simple. It is just oyster sauce, soy sauce, honey, and lime. So again, store cupboard staples that you should kind of always have in your cupboard for adding maximum flavour to so many dishes. When it comes to fresh ingredients for this week's meal plan, you're actually not buying that many because we're really using the most of the things that we have. But it does mean that you have to kind of rely on your store cupboard ingredients and having a good pantry stocked. If you want to know more of my favourite store cupboard ingredients, then let me know and I can do a whole video on that. But for now, onto our gyoza stir fry. All you want to do is chop your garlic and your vegetables, and you're basically good to go. You want to use a fairly hot pan for this, as with most stir fries, so it cooks really quickly, meaning the vegetables retain some of their bite, the gyoza don't get overcooked, and everything is ready super quickly. As before, I'm using the chicken gyoza, but if you want to make this vegetarian, you could use a vegetable gyoza, and then you can actually swap the oyster sauce for a vegetarian oyster sauce, which Again, you can buy at Asian supermarkets. They're often made with mushrooms. So you could use a mushroom oyster sauce for this. And then if you wanted to keep it vegan, you could do both of those things, plus swap out the honey for maple syrup or agave. As I said earlier, over on my newsletter, I send out these meal plans every other week, and I provide all of the dietary swaps for different requirements. So you don't have to think about any of this. I do it all for you. I put it in your shopping list. All you have to do is go to the shop and buy it. And there our Gyoza Stir Fry is done. You can see the sauce has reduced and is now really gorgeous and glossy and slightly sticky. I'm going to top mine with some fresh coriander. You can also add some chopped roasted salted peanuts if you like. That is dish number 3 done. Recipe number 4 is for my chili con carne con rice. This is a brilliant dish where the rice that you would normally serve with a chili is actually cooked in the chili, which means it soaks up all the flavor and you get your whole meal in one pan. As always, come on, you know me by now. This recipe uses up some ingredients from earlier on in the week. Of course, we have got our kidney beans that we had in the jerk chicken with coconut rice, and we've also got extra rice. So even though it's a store cupboard ingredient, it's nice to be able to use it frequently so it's not just hanging around in there unnecessarily. We're also using beef mince, which we're going to use in the final recipe tomorrow as well, but you could easily substitute this for another meat, or you could use a vegetarian alternative like a soy mince, or you could use lentils instead if you wanted to keep it more pulse focused. As always, it's super easy to prep. It takes a little bit of time to cook, but truly not that long at all, especially because you're cooking everything together. The prep time is minimal. It is just a case of chopping onions and garlic and then frying that off in the pan with ground cumin, ground coriander, chili powder, and a little pinch of cinnamon, which I really think is the perfect addition to any chili. It adds a little sort of sweet spiciness, which I love, and brings a lot of depth to the flavor. And whenever I make this chili for people, they always say it's one of the best chilies they've ever had. So if you don't trust me, trust them. We're also going to be using half a tin of tomatoes, and we don't need the other half of the tin in any other recipes this week. But one of my favorite things to do with tin tomatoes is to freeze them. So you can pour them into an ice cube tray and pop them in the freezer, and then they're perfectly portioned for the next time you want to use them. And if you don't fancy freezing them, then I would turn this into a tomato sauce or a soup, or you could have pan con tomate, which is basically garlicky tomatoes on delicious bread, or you could try my gnocchi con tomate, which is another recipe from my cookbook. So yes, there are lots of things to do with something like tin tomatoes because they're obviously such a versatile ingredient. For now though, on to chopping the onions and the garlic before we start to fry everything off. The chili has been bubbling away and is now super rich in flavour, and it's thickened up nicely. The rice is cooked and it is smelling delicious. I'm going to serve this up with a really good squeeze of lime, some more fresh coriander, and I've got some tortilla chips that I like to scoop everything up with, so they're going to go on the side as well. Recipe number 5 of the week is my beef and ginger lettuce wraps. These are so fresh. I absolutely adore them. They are seriously quick and easy to make, but they really pack a punch when it comes to flavor. Ingredients wise, we are using the rest of the ground beef that we used in the chili. We've also got ginger, which we used earlier on in the week in the Thai baked dumplings, the other half of the onion from the chili, plus coriander that we've used in a few dishes this week. Soy sauce and fish sauce are making another appearance, which is why it's always great to have them on hand. And that's basically it. Again, the prep is minimal. We just want to chop our onions, garlic, ginger, and chili, throw it in a pan, fry it up with our beef and our sauces, and then we're serving it up in really fresh and crisp lettuce cups. If you want to bulk this out a little bit, you could also serve it with some rice. Either just cook some basmati rice that you used earlier on in the week, or I love a little microwave rice pack. I think they're so handy to have Also really good when cooking for one because you can either buy small little pots that can go in the microwave, or you could use half a bag or a whole bag if you're me for every meal, and it's just easy, no fuss. So no shame in using pre-cooked rice packs. We're using beef in this recipe because we used it in the chili con carne the other day, but the original recipe for this actually uses pork, which is a slightly more traditional option because this dish is actually inspired by Thai larb, which is pork lettuce cups. You could use that, and you could use pork in the chili if you wanted. That would work really well as well, but I'm using beef in both. If you wanted to make this vegetarian, again, you could use a soy mince, you could use lentils again, or you could use some finely chopped mushrooms. I hate mushrooms, so I won't be doing that, but I do like beef, which is what I'm using. In terms of lettuce, you want to use something like a baby gem or a butterhead lettuce because the leaves of that are crisp enough to add the freshness, but they're not so crispy that it's all going to break apart when you fold it all up. So something that has a crispier end and a slightly softer, frillier edge is perfect. If you have any leftover lettuce, add it to salads, add it to sandwiches. But the one thing you can't do with the lettuce is freeze it. It's one of the only vegetables that you actually can't freeze because the water content is so high. So don't put it in your freezer. The beef is cooked and it's smelling so fragrant. You can really smell the garlic and the ginger in the air. I've got my lettuce wraps ready to go, and all that's left to do is serve up. Okay, fine, great idea, well done me. It's a wobbly motherfucker. Get in the corner. Don't sue me. Shut up. This gorgeous kind of sweetness. Someone's calling me. I hate mushrooms.